Okay, so Mary Wollstonecraft, she's in present day, and there are women that want to go to college simply to find a suitable husband for them, and that is their primary reason. And they're telling this to Wollstonecraft, and her response to them, she would be utterly disappointed, and she would disagree with their primary reason, and she would argue that they should go primarily for their education. And I think once you intertwine her view, Wollstonecraft's views of dignity, the neo-Roman slash Republican concept of liberty, and then her woman's natural roles, all that to inform her response, she would firmly say that they should go simply to be educated. Period, point blank. Wollstonecraft is the founder of modernism, and she wrote her book under the identity of a man, so her ideas weren't automatically cut off. And the main question in her writing was, what does true dignity consist of? And to have a simple definition, true dignity involves personal growth, equality, self-respect, and autonomy, that freedom to act according to their own rational will. And the root of that, I feel that she argues in her book, is that it all starts with education, right? That education is a form of respecting yourself, and that when you're educated, you have that, you're kind of gaining that autonomy. You're making the decisions you make, you're making them because you're educated. You know what you're talking about. You're working on your personal growth, and it is equal to men. You're getting those same opportunities. One thing I think that is important that we cover is Isaiah Berlin's Two Forms of Liberty, because Wollstonecraft's ideas align with it. The two forms are negative liberty and then the positive freedom, the communism. So the negative liberty is when you have the freedom to do what you need to do as long as your actions don't impede what someone else has to do. And that the reason why her ideas align with this is it gains a sense of independence, and the women are having these equal chances as men, and they are doing what they need to do as long as they're not impeding anyone else. And I feel that she would highly agree with that statement. And then for the positive freedom, actively using our freedoms and energies when practicing politics, how can they do that if they aren't educated? And I feel that that is another reason why she would aim for these women to be 100% educated. Just her views of dignity alone, education is needed for that. Now, when you're traveling over to this neo-Roman Republican liberty, I think the word slave is really important here, because she says how being a slave is when you're an instrument of someone's will. So in actuality, if you're a dependent, you're their slave. Freedom isn't yours if it depends on the will of someone else. So if they're going to college simply to find a suitable husband, and then they're just their domesticated wives, and their survival relies upon their husband, their slave. And she would highly disagree with that. Their profession would just be domesticated, almost housewife, which in a way lowers their self-respect. And she even says how your profession makes your man. And she says right here, it is of great importance to observe that the character of every man is in some degree formed by his profession. A man of sense may only have a cast of countenance that wears off as he traces individuality, whilst the weak common man has sacredly ever any character. But what belongs to the body, at least all his opinions, have been so steeped in the vat consecrated by authority that the faint spirit with the grape of his own vine yield cannot be distinguished. So it's important that we recognize here that she is pretty much saying that your profession is defining your man. It is this social construct, and that domestication of the wife kind of lowers her value. So now that we've covered that response, and going on to the the natural roles of women, I think that she believes that women's roles, that they're fully capable of intellectual and moral growth, and that they should have opportunities that are equal to men. And she says that, I have my quotes right here. Consequently, the most perfect education, in my opinion, is in such an exercise of the understanding as it's best calculated to strengthen the body and form of the heart. In other words, to enable the individual to attain such habits of virtue as to render it independent. I'm not going to read the rest of the quote. You just need to stop there. She's fighting for this sense of independence, and it is gained through education. And the natural roles of women, she feels they're fully capable of doing what men can do, and the education is what gains their independence. Connected with man's daughters, choose one light. Yeah, and she also argues that genuine freedom is coming from developing your mind. Is coming from that ability to develop your minds. Connected with man as daughters, wives, and mothers, their moral character may be estimated by their manner of fulfilling those simple duties. But the grand end of their exertions should be to unfold their own faculties and acquire the dignity of conscious virtue. They may try to render their road pleasant, but ought never to forget, in common with man, that life yields not the felicity which can satisfy an immortal soul. I do not mean to insinuate that either sex should be so lost in abstract reflections or distant views as to forget the affections and duties that lie before them and are in truth, and the means appointed to produce the fruit of life. On the contrary, I would warmly recommend that even while I assert that they afford most satisfaction when they are considered in their true subordinate light, what that was pretty much saying is that when everyone is given that equal opportunity, that it allows them to be who they truly need to be, and they can only get that through this education, through that personal and self-growth. And if they are not doing that themselves, they can never get to that point. And if you're asking me, I would fully agree with everything that Wollstonecraft has to say. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a feminist because I do feel that although women can do everything that men can do, that they almost shouldn't. I think that the man does play a certain role in the house, and it all affects just the way the hierarchy of the house works in itself. So I definitely wouldn't consider myself a feminist, but I would agree with what Wollstonecraft is saying here. She would be saying to these women that they should go for college not to find a husband, but to be educated so they can have that self-growth, so they can have that self-respect, so they can have that sense of autonomy. And that is simply what Wollstonecraft would be saying.